Mm. Just like we saw Yeshua's in Klal Yisrael on those days, we should continue to see Yeshua's on Klal Yisrael for Klal Yisrael. I also want to thank David Lightman for buying me a new pointer because my pointer went missing. So now I have a new pointer. Ah, good morning, Mr. Berman. This is Milan Gittin, ja, Milan has in the hand is a große Tag. Behind Lenten that Kivage besteht bei Shem Yur Einheit. Das ist der größte Kivage.
Lekker zaak gaat. Denk ik, moeder water, je houdt toch niet door. Je hebt er nog een soort, maar de moeder heeft dat zaak gaat. Maar we ook niet Rabba, ze we Rava. Maar we ook niet Rava, ze we Rabba. Hoi, bij Rabba zoeken ze we Rava.
In Gittin wil machen Schulum.
Ja, dat is dat. Hoi, bij Rabba zoeken ze we Rava, en Rava zoeken ze we Rabba. En in ganz Chas is eigenlijk doen met Leute. Het is een half Chas. Laat je het weer ja dus. Maar Rava missuchen anders wie Rabba. Aber Rava suchen dasselbe wie Rabba, schon. Und ich erzähle alle Sachen, legisch ein bisschen Lishma, in dieser Zeit.
Ja, ja.
Ja,
Ja, wir müssen die verschiedenen Opinions. Und nicht.
Nicht nehmen wir raus. Auch Schaß, muss es dann dabei sein.
That's right, that's right. Okay, so yesterday we learned the two proposed reasons why the shliach that comes, the shliach leilocha, that comes to deliver a get, needs to say b'fani nechtav b'fani nechtav. Rabba said people who are not in Eretz Yisrael aren't familiar with the fact that a get has to be written l'shma, and the Gemara is going to analyze today: is that the ksiva the get, or is that the chsima? In the Nishab, not they don't know. That's right. They do know. That's right. They do, yeah. That's right. That's right. In Buvalo, in Lakewood Oak, yeah. But Rava said Lefisha ein edim mitzuyin l'kaim. Since from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz, it's not common to have caravans, people traveling back and forth. We're concerned that if there's an ear, they won't be able to be Mekayim to get. So the Gemara asked, how is it then that you can do it with an Eida Echad? How is it that it's enough if the Shaliach himself says it? He doesn't need a partner. Dr. Gemara, because really the whole Chashash of Lo Yishma is a miyut to the miyuta. Why? Because 100% of people who are involved in writing it know the rules. Nervous. We're afraid that someone made a get for himself and he discarded it because he decided that he's going to make peace with his wife. And another fellow whose name is the same name as the fellow of the first fellow, and his wife's name is the same name, they live in the same city, he found it on the floor. So in order to make sure that doesn't happen, which is a vaita chashash, the Rabbanan are happy to allow the Namanos of the Echad. Why? Because if they require two Eidim, Zok to Gemara at the top of the Gimel Amaralf, Mishum Igino Ikulu Baraban. The whole reason why they want some type of verification is because of the very remote chance that this husband found the get on the floor. Therefore, they're not going to require two Eidim. It's enough if there's one Eid. So the Gemara asked, Hi Kulahu, it's not a Kula to let this woman get married with a get that was delivered by only one Eid, who could then testify that it was written Lishma. Because Chumrahu, you're really messing her up by allowing this get to work. The Matzruchas Latre, if you would have required two Eidim verifying the origins of this get, Lo Yosy Ba'alu Ma'aru Pasale. Then if the Baal would come later and say, hey, you're remarried, how could you be married? I never gave you a get. You don't need to give me a get. Here's the get. And they'll say, I think that's not my get. That nothing to do with me. But if there's two Eidim, he can't do that. Because the two Eidim says, no, we're Eidim that you gave it to us. We saw it was written Lishma. We saw it was signed Lishma. You gave it to us. They could diffuse and be Mavatal, his Taina. But Chad, now that the Chachamim only mandated one Shliach Leilacha, you're putting this woman into a very, very dangerous situation. Because Osi Baal Ma'ar Upasale. The Baal could come and be Ma'ar Upasal lay, and could passel it. What could he passel? Does anybody know what upasale means? What he could passel? It means he could passel the get. So if I asked you at this stage in the Gemara, if the Baal came to be ma'ar, would it passel her get? What would you say? So would it passel the get? So the Gemara says upasale. So I think it means it would passel the get, right? Rashi says, why would it passel the get? Rashi says, Ashta ati ma'ar buki chad v'hadichad, and she starts off with a cheskes zish. So in fact, it would passel the get. That's the pashtus of how to learn this Gemara. Maskim? Okay. So what did the Gemara answer? Even the Amar Mar b'fnei kama noisnula. Since there's a machlokes in front of how many people does this shliach leilacha have to deliver the get? What type of scrutiny, what type of audience is he going to have when he delivers this get? Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Chanina, chadam either b'fnei beis, b'chadam b'fnei gimel. So regardless, he knows this is not just an anonymous transaction. He's going to be scrutinized. So therefore, this fellow is not going to be maskim to be a shliach leilacha unless he's sure that this is going to go easy. So if he personally got the get from the husband, and the husband says, I want you to give the get, he's not going to be worried that the husband's going to be ma'ar. So therefore, he is Neman. He's Neman because he made sure not to become a shliach leilacha until he was sure that the husband's not making trouble over here. So therefore, Zok Gemara, since he's going to be giving it over to the woman in front of people, Meikar Medik Dai also she's not going to mess himself up. And Rashi says, Medik Dai Kashlich Kishamakabim Yadabal, the boy, Shabaratsan Magarsha. He makes sure that this is willing. This is done with the willingness of the Baal. The Yadei boy Shabaratsan Magarsha. And therefore, so we don't have to worry that's going to happen. But Rashi takes it a step further. Vinami Oirer, even if the husband shows up, and he won't be believed, the Eid Echad of the Shliach has a greater than the Monis. In Echad of the Baal, the Vadai Dok B'Milsa Shopper. We can be confident that this Shliach, before he took that get, he made very sure that this is a kosher get. So the Gemara says, Hi Kulahu Chumrahu. It's not really like Kulahu, it's a Chumrah, because by allowing the get to be delivered by one person and only having one person testifying on the validity of the get, it's setting her up for a potential problem should the husband come and be ma'ar. So there's a fascinating Tosfos, and the most exciting part of the Tosfos is that we have a Kiveger with the Hashem Yar Einai, the most severe type of kasha that Rabbi Kiveger asks. So let's see what it says over here. Hi Kula Chumrahi. Bereisha Isha Rabba, in the beginning of Yavamas, on the beginning of Perik Isha Rabba in Yavamas, Gabe, if you remember, in Yavamas, the Gemara was discussing that a woman could get remarried even if there's only one aid that says that they saw her husband die. Normally you need two aidim, but we let her get married if there's even only one aid. Why? Because if, in fact, her husband shows up, we're going to throw the book at her. She'll be also labal, she'll be also laboyal, she'll have nowhere to turn to. Her children will be mamzerim. Since there's such a severe outcome, if, in fact, her husband comes back, we're not just relying on the Echad. We know that this woman will do her own independent investigation and she'll verify with certainty that her husband is no longer alive before she'll remarry. So that's what the Gemara said over there, why a woman can get married if there's only one day testifying that her husband died. The Gemara asked over there, the parach loy lachmer v'loy leikel. Who's asking you for a taiva? Don't throw the book at her if her husband shows up, and don't be mekel at the beginning. In other words, force her to bring two aidim. You're not doing her a favor by allowing her to get married with one aid, and then you're going to throw the book at her later. Better let her verify at the beginning. What did the Gemara answer there? Umeshani mishum igina ikilu barabanu. What did the Gemara answer there? The Gemara answered because iguna ikilu barabanu. Since we want to allow a woman to remarry, we're going to go easy with her in the beginning, and we put the safeguard in place by making it very severe if it ends up that her husband comes back. Greg Toysvis, why don't you ask? Why didn't the Gemara in Yavamas ask the same kasha that our Gemara is asking over here? What do you mean Mishum Igilu Ikilu Barabana? Thank you so much. It's a kula the asal lechomra. Don't do me no toivus, misho megina ikulu barabanan, because you're messing her up by being makel. Just like over here with 1 8, you're messing her up by being makel, because if the husband is ma'ar, it's going to mess her up. So why don't we say the same thing over there? You're messing her up by letting her get married if there's only 1 8 that says her husband died, because if he shows up, you're messing her up. Zok says that's not a kasha. You know why that's not a kasha? Lo shayich lemifrich ha kula hu hummerhu. You can't ask over there by Yavamis that it's not a kula by letting her get married with 1 8. It's a chumrah. Because the situation there is much different than the situation over here. Over there, the imatrichas halatarti, if you're going to say she may not remarry unless she can produce 2 edim, the imatrich halatrei uba baila mutaris lachser. The halacha is, if you require 2 edim, let's say 2 edim come along and say this man died and she remarried, should her husband show up, she's mutter to her husband. She's considered an inus because she had every right to rely on the testimony of 2 edim. The hashta bechad teitzim izel muzeh, and with 1 8, the teitzim izel muzeh. So Tosfos asked the same kasha here, the same kasha there as we asked here. Why is it mishum mikina akilu? You're messing her up. You're messing her up by allowing her to get married with 1 8. Zok Tosfos, there's a difference why over there we don't ask that kasha, because there we don't have any options. The hasam zim and efshir lasakin kishalei ra elechad. What if the mitzvah says there's only 1 8? Are we going to let her remarry or not? She can't fabricate another 8. There's no 8. So are we going to lock her up? No. Because even if there were many 8, but they're not here, how are you going to get her? So unless you're makel with her, she's stuck. She's stuck. Avokan, but when you're making a takana of how many shluchim have to deliver a get, it's lechatchila. Lechatchila, set it up properly. Avokan yochel l'shalcha b'shnayim. So here the Gemara asks you not doing her a favor by only mandating 1 shliach, mandate 2 shluchim. There it's after the fact. Can she get married with 1 8 or not? So there will be make the passion there. Break Tosfos, the whole kasha makes no sense at all. What's the whole kasha? Over there, it's going to end up coming out of chumrah. Right? Tosfos says the only reason why we don't care if it's going to come out of chumrah because we don't have a choice now. Right? What are we supposed to do? But in Svara, Tosfos says over there it's still going to come out of chumrah because if the guy shows up, it messes her up. What are you talking about? Let's look at the Gittin Shas. First of all, you see the reverence with which Rabbi Kivega refers to Tosfos. He doesn't say Tosfos doesn't make sense. Why? Kivan desamchinan al svara the daika. Since we're being soimach, why are we allowing her to get remarried? Because we know that she will independently verify with certainty the baila meis. If that's what we're relying on, well then that's why we don't have to be worried that she'll get messed up. Because what's your whole kasha? We're messing her up by letting her get married with 1. We're not messing her up at all because she's going to make sure that there won't be a mess up. She's going to verify, independent of that aid, that her husband died. So you can't ask me a kasha to cool chumrah. We've mitigated that. You know how we mitigated that? Because we know she's going to confirm that's not going to happen. The shiny hacha over here it's different, because here we couldn't possibly fully mitigate it. Even if we could be soymich that the shliach is saying the truth, the baal can still come be mahar. We can't stop that. She could make sure he's dead, but nobody can make sure that the baal won't come be mahar, even if the baal is lying. So therefore, I don't understand the kasha. How could you ask the same kasha there that you're asking over here, that over there it's a kul das l'chumrah? It's not a kul das l'chumrah, because it won't happen. It won't happen because she's daiku mitzvah. Hashem yarei night. I always like saying over what Rabbi Perman used to say, that he wanted a fan for Rabbi Kiveger's kasha, and there was Vashem yarei night. And he said, I remember my Rava of Kolovsky once wanted it for Emperor Rabbi Kiveger's kasha. Rabbi Kiveger said on the kasha, "V'tzarech hani l'rav bozeh." It's such a difficult question. I need a Rebbe to teach it to me. So in Rabbi Kolovsky's Tzal, when he wanted it for Emperor the kasha, what he said was, "Ich will zogen as if when Rabbi Kiveger's a Rebbe, aber Emperor came in the Sefer Emperor." And then he wanted to emphasize this Rabbi Kiveger's kasha. But Bacha raised his hand. Rebbe, do you want to be Rabban Yisrael for Rabbi Kiveger? She will, because otherwise she's going to be messed up. Doesn't want to be messed up. She might verify by making it happen. Maybe like yesterday, we learned that you have a special namos of if it's biyodcha, right? If you could check it, it's biyodcha, she can kill him. But maybe she should be neman. Yizok to Gemara weiter. So that's the Geshmak Rebbe Kiver. I want to point out another Tosfos because of what we discussed. Chad Asi Baal Ma'aru Posuli. So I was pressing you. So will the get be possible? Will the get be possible? So Moti says, yeah, it says Upasla. Dovi said, yeah, the get will be possible. And then we look at Rashi, and he says, Chad Chad, right? And then you go Basa Chazaka. So if there's only one aid, at least in the Havini of the Gemara, if there's only one aid, and the Baal is Ma'ar, it would possible to get. The Maskana is that the Shliach has a bigger nemanis than the Baal because he wouldn't have taken the Shlichus unless he was sure that everything was okay. But Tosfos says, Yesh Lefarish, the Pasale Mamish. Tosfos learns exactly like Moti learned, exactly like Dovi learned. Upasale means the get will be possible. Avagav Deloy Mehemen. Even though Betzim the Baal shouldn't be believed. Velekal allows Baalma, and really it's just Laz. The husband's being Ma'ar, but he doesn't have a nemanis negative. Nevertheless, the Mifsal, the get will be possible. In time of Tosfos from Cain, Maisol Kedaydach to Mahani Befani Nechtav, even the Kati Kalaz. Why Bechlal? Why Bechlal should help? The Asol Kedaydach, the Mahani. We thought that only even one Shliach saying Befani Nechtav would work. The Roi Pa'amim Lo Yosy. Most of the time, the husband will not come be Ma'ar because it makes him look bad. So Yizbar Shalo Yaminu. He's afraid no one's going to believe him. But if the husband is Ma'ar, at least in the Havini of the Gemara holds that he would be able to pass it again. In our Mishnah, it says, Im yesh olav oirin iskayim b'choisma. It's kedai to look back at the Mishnah and see if we can independently assess what that is referring to. The Mishnah is talking about the maybe get misyam, and then it says you have to say b'fali nechtam. And then the Gemara says in Eretz Yisrael you don't need to say it. But im yesh olav oirin iskayim b'choisma. So this last line in the Mishnah, im yesh olav oirin iskayim b'choisma, is that only going on Eretz Yisrael because no one said b'fali nechtam, or does it even apply in Chutz La'aretz even after someone said b'fali nechtam? So the shayla is l'maskona. L'maskona, if the shliach said b'fali nechtam, and there was error, do you need kiyum? Or do you say, once someone said b'fali nechtam, he trumps everybody? So that is the shayla. This last line in the Mishnah, is it only going when there was no b'fali nechtam because it was Eretz Yisrael, or is it even going back on the rest of the Mishnah? So that's what Tosfos discusses right here. Zok Tosfos. I maybe get Medina Sayom. Originally, when we started this Gemara, Mati and Dovi both said that even after the Shliach says, if the Baal is Ma'ar, he passes the get, unless you have to aid him to be Mekayim. So at that point in the Gemara, where Dovi and Mati said that, they're going to be learning Pshat in the Mishnah that Yiskayim B'choismav is not only going in the case of Eretz Yisrael, where there was no B'fani Nechtav, it's even going back in the case of Chutz La'aretz, where there was a B'fani Nechtav. Umashani, and the Gemara answers that Avada, he cannot passel the get. Umashani medik dayik v'loy osi Baal Ha'ar. The Baal will not come to be Ma'ar, as Rashi says, because at this when once the Shliach says B'fani Nechtav in front of the whole audience, where he's presenting the get, he's sure that this is what the Baal wants, and the Baal will not be Ma'ar. And then Rashi goes weiter, which Tosfos repeats. At that point, you don't believe the Baal anymore, because the Shliach has a higher level of nemonus, because he has a daika. He's going to be careful not to take on this mission of delivering the get unless he's sure that it's a good get. The lekalas klal. The Reed doesn't like to learn, even in the Havamina, that you would passel the get. In those, the Reed doesn't want to learn pshat like Moti and like Dubi. Even the kimlon shu kosher. If the aid is kosher, you do not passel a get just because the husband comes later. Maybe get Pashtus and Yeshel Oirin in the end of the Mishnah is referring to Eretz Yisrael when there was no B'fali Nechtav. It's not going back on the ratio where you was already B'fali Nechtav. Huh? I guess they gave him manamonis. Once they're ma'an, they give him manamonis. But near the fire, Shufosale, Hainu Sheminun Laz, Abu Mikoma can get kosher. He wouldn't be able to passel to get. He wouldn't be able to passel to get However, people are going to be talking about it, and it's not going to look good. It's not going to be a good situation. That's what the problem with the Gemara was. The Gemara answered, no, he has a full nemanis, and we're going to ignore the laws. Now, there's a long toisus. Give me 1 second. There's a long toisus. Moti asked, why should you believe they? There's a long toisus. The etzim, when you bring a star, right? The star in and of itself gives an nemanis. The star is an aid. Eidim achasumin al star, unless there's a tvia on the star that it's mezuyaf, the star is as if it's talking, and the star is saying it's the Eidim talking and saying testimony. So a get gives it koyach. Right. So the question is how much of an ear it would be. If there's an ear in two Eidim, Tosha says it would not pass. It would not pass. And the Maskana, the Gemara says in fact that he has an amonis. He has an amonis to say that it's a kosher get because he's daika and the husband who's just a troublemaker is not daika. Okay. Now we have Rabba. So we went through the whole thing of Rabba. We explained according to Rabba why an Eir Echad is enough. It's because the whole chash of Loy Lishma is only a vay chash, and the Rabbanan decided to rely on 1/8, and it turns out that not only will 1/8 prove to us that it was written Lishma, that 1/8 will also help deflect a taina of mezuyaf from the Baal. Right? That's the maskon over here. So inadvertently, even though Rabba only said that the funny nechtav is required because of the chash lishma, but now that we have this b'fani nechtav, it becomes powerful, and it will now deflect even an attack on the validity of the get. But Rava, my time aloy omer karab. Rava said it was all because of edim etzuin l'kaimon. Why didn't Rava, like Rabba Svara, why didn't he say the reason was because of lishma? Amalach, Rava will tell you, I'll tell you why. Did I just skip a piece of Gemara? Yeah. You guys you're too nice to me. You gotta scream at me when I skip Gemara. Correct Gemara, Ula Rava, the Amar Lafisha, Ein Edim Etzuin Lakaimoi, the same question. Liboy Trey. Once again, for Kiyam Shtar, you need to Edim. So why were they just allowing one Shliach to say that it's a good get? Midi the Hava Kiyam Shtar is the Amal. So Gemara, I'll tell you why. Because Erechad Neman Bisuin. Correct the Gemara, Amar Darmin and Erechad Neman Bisuin, Kagod Chaticha Shafik Shal Chalev Shafik Shal Shumin, the Lo Yischazik Yisura, where we never knew for sure, we never established that there was Israel here. Abel Hacha Yischazik Yisura, the Eishish, Habadavar Shebe'eva, Medavar Shebe'eva Pachas Mibeis. So, Frank the Gemara, exactly the same kasha we asked on Rabba. How is it enough to have 1/8? You should need 2 Eidim. Because here you wouldn't say Erechad Neman B'Yisurin because there's Ischazik Yisura, and even though sometimes in Erechad is Neman by Ischazik Yisura, that's only if it's B'Yadoi, like Shchita, like we said, like Afroshes Truma. Here you don't have that; it's not B'Yadoi. That's number one. Why do you need the extra svara of Edav Shabbat Pach Mishnayim? It's because Taishva said there was a svara in I think the Gemara Yavamis that Erechad should be Neman, even if it's Chazik Yisura, even if it's not B'Yadoi. So for good measure, the Gemara, to finalize and clarify the kasha, said you should definitely require to aid him, because Ein Davar Shebe'eva Pachas Mebeis. And for the Gemara, you're right. B'dinu the Bekim Shtaris Nami Loy Liboy. Really, you never need to aid him to be Mekayim Shtaris. The star speaks for itself. You shouldn't require to aid him. K'divir Shlakish, Tomer Shlakish, Eidim achasumin al ashtar nasu kimisha nechker edusim bevet. So kiyum shtar should never be required. You have a star. Star speaks for itself. The whole concept of kiyum shtaris that if someone tanis mezuyif, if you have to be mekayim it, is only midrabanan. For Rabbanan hu da'atra, the Rabbanan required it. V'hacha mishum igina ikilu baraban. And here, because of iguna, they were mekel. So it's the same shtickle. So frekt moti, what if the guy turns mezuyah? Maybe the whole thing is mezuyah. Zok Rashi, the lechotz of inish l'ziyufe. You have another chosach. no one would dare forge a get or forge a star, even a star choy. People don't forge. It's too brazen to outright forge. It's not like it's a COVID test. It's a star. So no one is going to be so brazen to forge a get. So therefore, a get stands on its own. You cannot tell him. It's only with the Rabbanon they decided to require kiyum, and here al tiguna they only required one shliach. Ikulu b'Rabbanon. Practical Gemara, the same sugi as we had earlier. Hi kuluhu chumruhu the matzrichas alei trey loy asi balu ma'aru pasalei. Chad. Now that you only need one, asi balu ma'aru pasalei. The Kivan of our if they come in the law. Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Chanina, Chadam, Rabbi Shnayim, Rabbi Gimel, May Kara, May Dagdaik, will also rule Napshay, exactly what we said a minute ago, according to Rabba. Dr. Gemara. Now that we have clarity in the position of Rabba and in the position of Rava, let's try to understand why each of them said like they did and not like the other one. Rabba, my time, why did Rabba need the Surah of Kiyum? Why didn't Rabba say just like Rabba? That it's also Shema. Amalach, very simple why. Because what did they require that he says? Befani nechtav, befani nechtam. He doesn't say a word about l'shema. Mikatani befani nechtav l'shema, befani nechtav l'shema. So clearly this is not about l'shema, because that should have been the nusach. But Rabba, how could Rabba learn that it's about l'shema? That's a good kasha. It doesn't say l'shema. Rashi spoke about it in the Mishnah. Now the Gemara elaborates. Really, that's the objective, that they should verify that it was l'shema. But if you make someone say so much, b'fani nechtav l'shma, you force him to say 3 words, b'fani lechtav b'shma, that's too much. El dimavshish leidi bura, if you force him to say such a long nusach, osi lemigzaya, he's going to miss out a word from the nusach. So therefore, we only make him say 2 words. Practically Gemara, and 2 words, you're not going to have a problem that he might mess up the nusach. Hashtanami, osi lemagazi, he might cut off one of the words. A person might miss out 1 word out of a 3-word text, but chadamitarte, 1 of 2 words loy goes. So therefore, Chazal assessed the maximum nusach that you can impose on somebody is 2 words. If you try to push him to say 3 words, you can mess it up. Now, what's the problem if he messes it up? Very, very, very important. The funny nechtav. Oh, that's a good kasha. Frek Chaim, what about the funny nechtav? There's another 2 words there. Gavaltic kasha. Zok the Gemara. Let's read Rashi. I mean, loy gayis. Zok Rashi. Umemela. Once he says b'fani nechtam, or b'fani nechtam, umemela shaylinulei inichtav l'shema v'amar in. Right. That's how we learned in the Mishnah. Once he says something, so that will prompt the conversation. And they'll ask him, "Was l'shema?" Inami Rashi says, when he says b'fani nechtav, we automatically know he means to say l'shema. Umiyu, Rashi Chaim's kasha. B'fani nechtav, u'b'fani nechtam atzruchua. You need to say both nechtav and nechtam. The ksiva v'chasima l'beini l'shema. Not just the writing of the get has to be l'shema, the signing of the get has to be l'shema as well, which the Gemara will discuss. Since there's 2 different things that we're talking about, there's 1 nusach said for the ksiva and 1 nusach said for the chsima. That's not a problem that someone will leave that out. So that answers Chaim's kasha. Gavalt. Zok Gemara, the Rabba, my timer, loy amar karava. Oh, but I need to point out an extremely, extremely important Rashi that I missed by mistake. Asila magazia, the loy yomer kulu. So why is that such a big deal? So he won't say the whole nusach. So big deal, we'll ask him. Zogt Rashi something very profound. Once the Rabbanan make a nusach that you have to say, it's a coined nusach, that if you deviate from that coined nusach, the whole thing's bottle, and it would be a parcel again, and the child will be a mamzer. We're going to see that Rava doesn't subscribe to that. Rabba says this is a coined phrase, you modify it a drop, the whole gets puzzled. We're going to see soon in Rava that Rava doesn't subscribe to the fact that this is a coined phrase. And it'll come out quite clearly momentarily. Rabba, my timer, loy amar karava. Why didn't Rabba say like Rava? Amalach, Rabba will tell you very simple. Im kain, if it's about kiyum stories, nisni b'fani nechtam v'suloi. If it's all about kiyum shtaris, they just have to say edus that this is the signature of the Edom of who actually signed the star, who signed the get. Why do you need b'fani nechtam v'suloi? B'fani nechtam lamali. So it must be, if we're addressing b'fani nechtam, shema mina be'inin l'shma. It must be a question of l'shma, because the only verification we would need l'gabe d'ksiva is that I was written l'shma. V'Rava, v'dinu d'listni haki. You're right. All we really needed was for the A to say b'fani nechtam. We didn't need it to say b'fani nechtam. So why was that part of the nusach? Eldim kain oti lachlufe b'kiyum shtaris ta'alma be'irechot. If all he said was b'fani nechtam, and we know the purpose of that is to be mekayim the chasimus edim, people are not going to make a distinction that get is different and that there's a special kula by get. People are going to think that by all shtaris, the kiyum of one eid is enough. So we needed to modify the nusach of his kiyum so that it would be obvious that this is not a general rule about kiyum, it's a rule that applies exclusively to Gittin. The Rabba, you need two edim. You need two edim. By kiyum get, you need one. And in order to make sure people don't confuse get with other stories, the nusach of kiyum of a get he says b'fani nechtav as well. And then people will know from the word that he used, epis to his mother, this is definitely not something that would apply to regular kiyum stories. Well, that's exactly the point. You might think you don't need two people. You might think that one person is enough. So we want to make get different so that on its face people will see this is something unusual and wouldn't apply. For Rabba Amar, there's so many other distinctions here. I don't need the distinction of b'fani nechtav. Midami, hasim yadinon, hacha b'fanai. What is the normal nusach kiyum shtaris? They say, I know this is a signature. That's not what the Eid is saying here. The Eid is saying over here b'fani nechtam. So on its face, if he just said b'fani nechtam, once again everybody would know this is unusual and this doesn't apply to regular shtaris because he's not saying the same nusach that a normal person would say. Yadinon, we know this is a signature. He's saying much more than that. He's saying b'fanai. So that's one distinction. So why do I need the distinction of b'fani nechtav? Another distinction. Hasam isha loy mehemna. Hach isha mehemna. You know the halacha is that a woman who brings this get, not only a woman, even if she brought her own get, we're going to soon see. But now we're saying if a woman was a shliach, she's also neman to say b'fani nechtav. So that would be a very clear difference. Now, for that, the Gemara is going to rely on the Pashut Teretz. We need to be worried if it was a man who brought it. There could be confusion. But I'll call them that's the kasha. And there's another difference. The person who brought the star cannot say, I recognize the Edom. Here, the woman herself has a right to say, I recognize the Edom. Where would it be relevant? If her husband made her into a shliach leilacha. Crazy story. She goes to pick up the get. Why isn't she being aggressive right there? Because the husband says, I don't want to get to Bichal now. I don't want to get to Bichal until you get back to your local business. So now she's a shliach leilacha. She has to say, b'fani nechtam, b'fani nechtam. But again, the Baldover herself could say it. So there's so many distinctions that clearly show this is not your classic kiyum shtaris. So I don't need any other b'fani nechtam to tell me that this is not kiyum shtaris. V'Rava Amar loch, no, those wouldn't be good. Those wouldn't be good clarification for us. Because ati hacha the amrina dinon milay mehemni. Here, what if the shliach leilacha didn't say b'fani nechtam and b'fani nechtam? He said yadinon. I know this is the signature. Avad it will work. Since if he would have said it, it would work. So you see clearly from Rabba's opinion that you don't have to use the same nusach. Yadina would work. So you see that according to Rava, we don't have this concept of kol hamashanim matbeya, which means that I don't know if he argues on the concept of kol hamashanim matbeya. Could be he holds this was not a matbeya. The Rabbanan never said you need to say a specific nusach. So therefore you don't have this rule that he has to say exactly that nusach. The shliach could have said yadinam, and that would have also been a good kiyum for this star. So therefore, it's too similar. So we forced the shliach to say b'fani nechtav as well. And that's why he mandates that you say b'fani nechtav, even though that's completely irrelevant. All we're looking for is verification of the Eidim.
The reason why I say that when a regular person comes, you should know that he can't apply this.
That's exactly how Rabba understands it. That's exactly how Rabba learns. You're right. And that's why Rabba says you have to say b'fani nechtav. That's right. Zok to Gemara weiter. Zok to Gemara weiter. L'Rabba de Amar l'vishein b'kiyin l'shma. Let's go back to Rabba. Rabba said the reason why the Eidim have to say b'fani nechtav is people not b'kiyin l'shma. My high Tana, the boy ksiva l'shma. We understand you need ksiva l'shma, but why? Where do you know? Where do you know from that you need ksiva l'shma? Because clearly Rabba is saying the ksiva has to be l'shma. That's why you got to say b'fani nechtav, and the chasima has to be l'shma. That's why you say b'fani nechtav. So let's see. Where do you know from that you need ksiva l'shma, and where do you know that you need chasima l'shma? So my Tana, the boy ksiva l'shma, and uboy chasima l'shma. So turning on Talmud Beis. Zok to Rabbi Meir. If you're going to go according to the sheet of Rabbi Meir, who says that Ikar Ashtar Zui Chasimosai, Rabbi Meir holds that the Chasima is the main component of every star. Well, then Chasima boy, Ksiva boy. According to Rabbi Meir, you should only need Chasima l'shma and not Ksiva l'shma. And I says the Chasav law. The Chasav law is referring to the Chasima because Rabbi Meir holds the main Ksiva is the Chasima. In fact, where did we see this shaila? That non we learned en koisvin b'mechuber lakarta. You're not allowed to write a get on mechuber lakarta. Get could be given. You don't have to write a get on parchment. You could write it on a leaf. You could write it on something that's growing, but you're not supposed to write a get on something that's mechuber. It should be tolish. So en koisvin b'mechuber lakarta. You're not really allowed to write a get on something that's mechuber lakarta. What if you did? What if you kosvah mechuber lakarta and then tolshoy and then you cut it off and then chasmoy and then there was a chsima but not kosher? So that clearly says that the ksiva is not makav. The most important part that gives the get its validity is the chasima. And that's why as long as it was already detached by the chasima, even though the ksiva was done when it was mechuber lakarka, which would not be a kosher yet, the fact that the chasima was done after it was cut is enough. Why? Because chasima is the creation of the get. So according to your mayor, I understand why you need to say b'fani nechtam. But why would you need to say b'fani nechtam? If you could write the get on mechuber lakarka, for sure it doesn't have to be l'shma. And Rabbi Elazar, and if you want to say it's going according to Rabbi Elazar, who argues on Rabbi Meir, we're going to show you that he holds ksiva boy, chasima loy boy. He holds the ksiva is the main thing, and only the ksiva has to be l'shma. The chasima is not necessary. Rabbi Elazar holds edim mesira karshi. You don't need even the edim sliding on the star, and we'll soon see that in a minute. Zok the Gemara, v'chitema la'olim Rabbi Elazar. And if you want to say, let's say it is Rabbi Elazar. But the chiloi boy Rabbi Elazar chasima lishma is b'daraisa. That Rabbi Elazar holds you don't need chasima lishma, and the ksiva is the main thing. That's b'daraisa. But there's a chomer midrabanan boy, but maybe midrabanan he does require even chasima lishma, and that's why the way Rabba is understanding it, we need to say both b'fani nechtav and b'fani nechtam. Because the ksiva has to be l'shma midaraisa, and the chasima has to be l'shma midrabanan according to the sheet of Rabbi Elazar. Dr. Mora, I'll prove to you that Rabbi Elazar holds even midrabanan you don't need the chasima at all, because it says as follows: V'shloisha Gittin psulin dirabanan. There's a case of 3 Gittin that are psulin midrabanan. Rashi says in the last parak, it lists off 3 Gittin of psulim, and one of the Gittin in the list, which we'll soon see in more detail, is Eina Lov Edim. A get that has no Edim is puzzle, and it's puzzle with Rabbanon. Rashi says, Kloima Psulayu Afilu Tanakama Loihava Elim Rabbanon. And the way we're going to know in a minute that the Tanakama only puzzles a get without Edim Rabbanon is because the Brisa Firzois Midikatani Im Nisis Avlat Kosher. It'll say if you gave a get without the Chasima and the woman remarried and had children, the blood will not be a mamzer. So even the Rabbanan who do say you require signatures hold that it's only with the Rabbanan because if the get didn't have a chasima, the children will be kosher. And there Rabbi Elazar argues, Rabbi Elazar chasima l'shma, and Rabbi Elazar doesn't need it over there, meaning vice the question must be even lechatchila, because even the Rabbanan holds you don't need it only midrabanan. Between Rabbi Elazar who argues, hold you don't even need a midrabanan. So once again, we need a Tana who holds that you need both ksiva l'shma and chasima l'shma. Where do you see this in Rabbi Elazar? It's not. Gimel Gittin psulim. There are 3 Gittin that are psulin, but are only possible midrabanan because vimnises have vlad kosher. If a woman remarried with this get, the vlad will still be kosher. What are those? Kasav b'chsav yadai ve'eino lavedim. If he wrote it in his own handwriting, but there was no edim in it, or yesh alavedim, it had edim, but ve'ein boizman. There's no zman on the get, so we don't know when it was written. Or yesh boizman ve'ein boy ela edechad. Or if it has a zman, but there's only edechad uksav yidei sofer. Okay, Rashi is the ksav yidei sofer. And it wasn't written by the Baal. Hare elu shloisha gittin psulim. All of these 3 gittin are possible lechatchila, but the imnisis have vlad kosher. And Rabbi Elazar commented on this and said, Rabbi Elazar Omer afal pisha ein olav edim ela shenastu lo b'fnei edim kosher, because he holds that the edim mesira is what pulls off the get. That's what creates the get. So oy bazoi. How can you say Rabbi Elazar holds even the chatchila you need chasim l'shma? You don't need it at all. So why do you need to say b'fani nechtam according to Rabbi Elazar? It's not. It's a kosher get. Even if there's no edim on the get, if the mesira was no, it's not possible. No, Rabbi Elazar is not possible. He holds kosher. Hagupa, he holds kosher. The Tanakama said it's possible l'chatchila, and Rabbi Elazar holds l'chatchila. You're even allowed to do it as long as you give it over in front of edim. Right. That's the Rabbanon. And Rabbi Elazar argues and he's further makel. So how could you be more makel than say it's kosher b'di'evet? The only way you can be further makel is say that it's kosher l'chatchila. Well, that doesn't really mean the get is puzzle, because if the get was puzzle, the vlad would be a mamzer. It means even though l'chatchila you're not supposed to give a get that way, it's going to be a good get midaraisa, so the vlad won't be a mamzer. Yet Rabbi Elazar says no, l'chatchila give it that way, no problem. So let me just see Rashi. This is a vlad kosher. Because Monty commented on that. Almo Tanakama gufei le pasal le midrabanan. Even the Tanakama holds this is not appropriate. That's only midrabanan. But midaraisa it's good, and therefore you don't make children mamzerim. Udem umidepolig Rabbi Elazar alei. Since Rabbi Elazar argues on this problem, that's a lechatchila problem only. Shmami no afilu lechatchila machshir. It must be that he's machshir even lechatchila, and he takes it a step further. If it was not a get, rather, it was a shtar choiv that was written in this fashion, because Rabbi Elazar shita isn't only by get, even by a shtar choiv he holds that edim mesira does the work, not the edim who started on the star. The goyva minachasa mishubadim. Dr. Rashi goyva ksubasa begazet minachasa mishubadim. But the lishna achrina is so either she could monor ksuba, but the lishna achrina which Tosfos prefers is goyva minachasa mishubadim im shtar milvahi. If you had a shtar milva without edim, but it was given over in front of edim, goyva minachasa mishubadim. And Rashi says, like we learned earlier, shtar choiv nami kari get kedamin ba'alma veget choiv she'en bayachrayis. So why? What's Rabbi Eliezer's reasoning? Rabbi Elazar's reasoning. I keep on saying Rabbi Eliezer. It's Rabbi Elazar. She'en ha'edim choitz min ala get elam tikun olam. You don't need edim on the get. They don't have to sign. The main edim that affect the chalois is the edim mesira, the edim who watched the transferring of the get over. It's only tikun olam that you need to sign again. And Rashi says, "Elam tetikun olam shema yemusu edim." What are we going to do if the edim mesira died? Now she no longer has proof that she was divorced. Pasha to help her that she should have proof that she is a divorced woman. That's the only reason why they feared to sign the get. The Miyamusu, even if the edim who witnessed and who actually made her get chal, even though they're no longer around, she'll be able to show the signed get, and that will be the proof that she's allowed to get married. So once again, we're stuck. So let's go back. Let's say it's Reb Meir, but the problem with Reb Meir is he said you need a chasima, but you don't need ksiva l'shma. So why do you have to say b'fadi nechtav l'shma? Dr. Gemara v'chiloi boy Reb Meir ksiva l'shma midaraisa. That Reb Meir said you don't need ksiva l'shma That's only midaraisa. By midirabanan boy, midirabanan Reb Meir agrees that you need to have ksiva l'shma, and that's why you have to say b'fani nechtav as well, because the ksiva has to be l'shma according to Reb Meir. Break the Gemara. Amar Rab Nachman. Rab Nachman said, "Omer Haya Rab Meir." Rab Meir used to say that you don't need ksiva l'shma, even l'chatchila. Why? Because Rab Meir said, "Afilu motzei ba'ashma." Oops. Even if you found the get in the garbage, even if you found the get in the garbage, v'chasmu, and you signed it, v'nosnula, and then they gave it to her, kosher, it will be kosher. And that means l'chatchila, you're allowed to give her a get that way. That means even l'chatchila, you don't need to have ksiva l'shema. L'chatchila, the get will be perfectly good. We allow you to find the get that was written, wasn't signed, and only sign it l'shema. So if you don't need, even l'chatchila, if you don't need ksiva l'shema, why do you need to say b'fani nechtav? Dr. Mar, v'chi tema, anan midaraisa kamastinula. If you're going to tell me that the brisa that we just quoted on the bottom of Amud Beis, afilu matzei b'ashma v'chasma v'nosel kosher, that's midaraisa, but really midarabanan, that wouldn't work. That's not a good way for the Mishnah, for the brisa to express itself. It's very misleading. Yachi omer hoyer Rab Meir. What it should have said was omer hoyer Rab Meir, that dvar Torah you could just write the get and give it to her. But to say plain, if you find it in the ashba, you could just sign it and give it to her. That's highly misleading. So it must be, if Rabbi Meir said that, you do not need a ksiva l'shema at all. He should have said midaraisa that would work. He didn't say midaraisa that would work. He said it would work. Clearly, that means that it would work even l'chatchila midarabanan. Zokt Rashi, Yachi Aymer married Vartar Miboyle. Lememar, the Havel Rav Nachman, the Moirahu, Lefru Shela Milse, Rav Nachman, who quoted this, should have been much clearer in how he's sharing this halacha with us. The Latepa Churbanine. So it shouldn't come out of Churban out of it. Because if you're saying it doesn't really mean you could do it, it's only with the Raisa, he better say that. Because otherwise people are going to think you could do this. Well, Lumistan Hachi, what he should have said was Aymer Rav Meir, Devar Torah, Afilu Matzei Ba'ashpa. Only midaraisa, but midarabanan, of course, you couldn't do it that way. So we're stuck. Who can we find that holds that you need both ksiva l'shema as well as chasima l'shema, and that's why the Mishnah says you need to say both b'fani nechtav and b'fani nechtam. Elo'olam Rabba Lazari is going according to Rabba Lazar. Rabba Lazar holds you don't need eid chasima at all. You're right, you don't need eid chasima. V'chilei boy Rabba Lazar chasima hechad lek edim klal. In fact, you didn't need to have any edim signing on the get, and it would be perfectly kosher. But if there are already edim on the star that weren't necessary, their boy, then you need kiyum. So you don't need to have edim. But if you do have edim, you better have kiyum. You know why? If there's a forgery in here, that's worse. If there's no edim signing, then no one can tell anybody forged anything. But if they're signed and it's forged, that will be a problem. Let's see the Heilige Gemara. Let's see just Rashi. It's better. So once they sign, it has to be l'shema. They technically don't have to sign it all, but if they're going to sign it, they have to sign it l'shema. Even if you don't need edim, but what would be if a possible eight signed? What if a karev signed? That would possibly get. You don't need edim. No edim are better than bad edim. So, but the same token, no edim are better than bad edim. No edim are better than edim that signed it. Shaloi l'shma. That's why according to Mary, you have to say both b'fani nechtav. I'm sorry. That's why according to Rabbi Lozer, you have to say b'fani nechtav because the chesiva is the ikar l'shma. It says v'chasav lo l'shma, and you need to say b'fani nechtav because you have a signed get. If you didn't have a signed get, there wouldn't be an issue. But if you have a signed get, it has to be mekuyam. Okay, we'll stop here, and we will be mamshich Be'ez Hashem tomorrow. Go ahead.